One of the things that's often heard in the spiritual space is we're living in the matrix. We got to get out of the matrix. And I wasn't really clear on what exactly that meant and how you go about doing that. But today's guest helped me better understand what that means and how you step out of this world in which we're living in that people often refer to as the matrix. Mark Anthony Lord is an incredible spiritual leader. He was on a pretty horrible trajectory for the beginning stages of his life. And at the age of 24 had a spiritual awakening in what he describes as discovering God and forgiveness. And though he wasn't really clear at the moment exactly what that meant, he knew that was something he absolutely needed to do. If you are a fellow Chicagoan, then you probably heard of the Bodhi Spiritual Center, which was in Chicago years ago. And this was founded by Mark. It was this incredible spiritual place where you could go. It wasn't religious, but it had brought in so many great thinkers, great leaders in the spiritual space. Currently, Mark is a freelancer and spiritual teacher. I know that you will get so much out of this episode. We had such a great synergy. We had an amazing time talking about what is spirituality, what is forgiveness, how to forgive, what is the matrix, how to get out of the matrix, what it means to open up spiritually. It is a deep conversation. I'm having more of these deep, meaningful conversations lately. It feels like we are really able to start going even deeper and deeper and deeper, which I believe is the work of spirituality. So with that, I bring you today's episode with Mark Anthony Lord.
We need at our table of awareness the logician, but equally we need the intuitive, we need the mystic.
I almost died. I was allowed to go to the very precipice of death, of life and death, and look over the edge. And I was allowed to behold what was there and allowed to come back. Most people aren't.
When we talk about being aligned with ourself or being aligned with our soul or hearing our higher self, that's really what we're talking about, is being connected to that divine part of ourself, that light-filled part of us that is connected to God energy, that is connected to everybody here and every experience we've ever had.
If more doctors, more professionals can open up to use intuitive gifts in their work, that's really important.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy Robbins, and welcome to Life, Death, and the Space Between. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and medium, and here we explore life, death, mediumship, near-death experiences, consciousness, and what it all means. Welcome, Mark Anthony Lord, to Life, Death, and the Space Between.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you.
So we had a fun conversation already. So I'm excited to even go deeper. For those who are listening, Mark and I we determined about 8 blocks from each other at this point. Right. So we're on Zoom, but we're like super duper close. So I want to understand, because years ago I went to the Bodhi Spiritual Center, which was this incredible spiritual center in Chicago that you started. Yep. But I'm curious how you got to that point. What was your spiritual awakening journey?
Well, I tell people it started in the back row, in the back alleys, because at 24 years old, I was highly addicted to drugs and sex and all the just self-destruction. But I did fortunately find recovery, and then recovery led me to go to a treatment center. And it was a private treatment center up in Canada. It was very, very spiritual, like crazy spiritual in the most positive way, although I was resistant to it in the beginning. I credit this moment, about 2.5 weeks into being there, I was in my counselor's office, and I was leaving her office after our session. And she stopped me and she said, "Mark, 2 things." She said, "You need to get a new God, and you need to learn how to forgive, or you will die." And those words, they pierced my soul. They pierced my soul every time I repeat them. There was something about the moment, the words, the alignment, and it jolted me. And I heard it, I felt it, and it was like a parallel life began. Like that sort of where you just take 2 degrees over and then it just forms a whole new world. And I left there really passionate about that. And what I discovered was everyone teaching about God really didn't have a concept that was fully formed, and certainly not devoid of punishment and all of the belief in separation and the suffering that was living in religion that was trying to decorate itself around God. So that I discovered was not working. But then forgiveness, no one knew what that really was. And I asked spiritual leaders and therapists and whoever I could find, I'd be like, tell me about forgiveness. And everyone was vague. Everyone was talking around it. So they really became two personal missions appointed to me that I kind of feel like I didn't choose. And since 25 years old, it's been my entire life. That's what I'm about. That's what I do. That's what I've discovered. I became a minister, and I was like never in my plan. And to this day, the conversation lights me up as much as it did in the beginning.
So what do you think it was about? Because I think it's interesting when people have these sort of spiritual awakenings. It sounds like in that exact moment when she said that you need to get a new God and you need to learn to forgive, something shifted in you pretty profoundly.
Yeah.
What do you think allowed that to happen in that moment? Allowed you to hear it that way? Like, what do you attribute that to?
I think it was kind of a bad way to say it, but it was like the perfect storm because like I had bottomed out enough on drugs and all that went around that I was in real pain. I was finally in an environment that was safe. So I was starting to find my way back to myself slowly. And there was enough, like I was also waking up to the fear of what my life had been and what was happening. Like I was really, you don't just get sober off the drug, you get sober to the self-destruction that's been happening and like what's underneath. And that's what I was really starting to be able to look at. So I was vulnerable. I was teachable. And this, as I said, this environment was absolutely immersed in spirituality. So I was put into this container where it's like everybody was in the vibration of this. I think it was just an alignment that gave me the ability to hear and to receive an appointment. I feel like it was an appointment. I don't know how else to say it.
Yeah, but so much of the AA model, right, the traditional AA model is steeped in spirituality. But
absolutely. But
it sounds like, but I hear a lot of people, I've worked with people who've gone to AA and they say it doesn't resonate with me. I don't want to give it over to God. Like it sounds like there was something about this experience that was particularly profound in the spiritual sense. Like what else was going on? What were they teaching you? How did you never drink or do drugs or have wild, crazy, addictive sex again? Like just from this one.
That's your assumption.
Okay. Okay. So it was a journey. It didn't just end.
Journey. I didn't do drugs, but I definitely, getting my codependency, my sexual behaviors, those things took a while.
Okay.
To, get into a right alignment.
I'm glad to hear that because I think that people think that a spiritual awakening, you have this moment, this woman says this to you, and suddenly like angels are singing and life is aligned.
Yeah, I know one person, two people on the planet that I know live like that, but that was literally two experiences. Most of us, and I have gotten spiritual awakening experiences. I'm very blessed all along my path, but they can be fantastical, mountaintop, and then I'm back in the valley.
As they say, right, before a profound experience or whatever, do laundry, after do laundry.
Exactly. So yeah, and I'm good with it. I'm good with it because it has really caused me to love myself and have compassion for myself and free myself from my own judgment. If it would have been a perfect leap from broken to whatever, awakened and fixed, I don't know. I don't think I'd be as effective of a spiritual teacher. Because when I teach, I bring all of me and my falling down and my getting up. And I think it's one of the most important messages today is remove the perfection. Stop placing spiritual teachers and gurus on pedestals. That you'll lose at some point because everything you put on a pedestal at some point has to fall. That's how it goes. But I love your questioning because I'm not delve this deeply. Like, you're really making me look at what happened.
It's the therapist in me.
And I'm trying to remember. It was a long time ago, but it just, I don't know. It was this amazing. The people who were running it were so dedicated to, and this is a missing piece, by the way, in 12-step recovery today, because things have been taken over by the pharmaceutical industry, by the insurance companies. And now the spirituality that saved lives has kind of been scrubbed out or put in the back room, which is why you hear people saying, oh, it doesn't work for me, I don't want God. Well, in the origin of the 12-step program, that was your only survival technique. You either had a spiritual awakening or you died. So there was no drugs or anything in between that. It was like, get off all drugs, find God, and that's what I got. I got the find God recovery.
So how do you define both a spiritual awakening and also what this new God was like for you? I know you said a little bit like it wasn't that religious, punitive, kind of heavy-handed, you have sinned and now you will pay.
Yeah. Well, I think it's literally an evolution. I'm writing a new book now about it, so it's interesting. To this day, I believe my relationship with God evolves because it's an infinite relationship. It's like your relationship with your husband, I hope, is evolving. Whenever we decide who they are, aren't we freezing the relationship in yesterday? It's the same thing with my relationship with God. It's ever evolving. It's growing. But the tenets or the pieces of it that make it so alive is I do not have a God that judges. It's not possible. I do not have a God that punishes.
So it's that all-loving notion.
It's 100% love and only love. And we can't even conceive of that in our humanness. So already this God concept is forcing me to surrender everything I've learned, everything I made up about myself, about relationship. It's a deep, real transformation, which is why most people don't choose it. It has taken me to question every single construct that exists in this world and measure it against this thing called God, and the world fails every time.
So tell me what that looks like.
It looks like looking at money and finances and watching people run crazy in fear because if their money's secure, then they think they're secure. Money is a false god. Money, get it right, get it organized, and then I'll be okay, and then I'll be okay. Well, that's chasing a carrot. Most people, even when they have more than enough, they're afraid of it losing. They're watching the stocks go up and down. They're obsessed with this thing because they have decided that their security and their source is in this external thing. That's not true. My source, my sustenance, and my abundance is from the nature of God in me. And that will never be depleted. That will never be affected by the stock market or what I have or don't have. And this is where it flips over. It informs my behavior in the world. It doesn't eliminate it or make it wrong. I still have stocks. I still do these things, but I don't ride the waves of fear. I am so certain of what is the source of my life and where my safety and security lies, which is not of this world. You know, there's a Bible quote. It says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, then all these things will be added." All these things that will be added, the world has put before God. Everything, money, relationships, sex, attention, fame, recognition, everything is first in our world. And they go to God second, which is why it's built on sand. It's their houses of cards. I flipped that. All these and I have wonderful things just like you. But they can come and go in my world. I have no issue. Can I give you an example real quick?
Yeah.
If two people are looking at a house burning down, one is spiritually awakened, one is not. The one that's not awakened is looking at the house burning down going, I've lost everything. Oh my God, this is terrible. And they're just in hell, and they're the pictures and the this and the that, and I'll never get this back. They're just in suffering. The awakened one is watching it going, wow, that's an amazing fire. I can't wait to see what's next in my life. That's not bullshit. you can live in that much freedom and that much non-attachment.
But then how do you not be in denial, I guess? Like, right, there is the real practicality of, this is extraordinarily painful. I maybe lost things that meant a lot to me. I'm not talking necessarily about flat out material things. Like, pictures have meaning, right? They have memories, they have all of that. Is there a place where you can experience the detachment, but also have the feeling of maybe sadness for what was destroyed?
Yes. I'm not, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because what's very common now in the spiritual world, which is, it's now a business. Spirituality is a business,
right?
Is spiritual bypassing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you're pointing to.
Mm-hmm.
How do you not use spirituality, just bypass, because we want to bypass feelings always.
Right. Yeah.
I find the opposite. It's an interesting question, because part of me does move through things unattached, and I check in. Am I missing something? Like and this is a very clear example.
Mm-hmm.
My mother passed away a year and a half. Mm-hmm. Now, she was older. She was ready. I did not experience a lot of grief at all, because I know she does not die. I know that I'm connected to her in spirit. I know that she's free. I don't have the story that everybody else is making up. My sister, in all this drama, and it's real for her, I kept checking in. I'm like, how can I believe she's free and she's spirit, she's not the body, and make up a story that she's the body? Like, it does change in positive ways. And there are times when feelings come, and the amazing thing is they're welcomed. It's different. I'll let wave of sadness come through me, and I'll just cry and enjoy it. It's just like, I can't explain it, but
I mean, I understand what you're talking about, because I have that experience with many things.
Yeah.
Although I always say, if something, God forbid, happened to my children, that might be the one thing that I might not be so easy to be non-attached to.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I mean, I can appreciate on some level what you mean. And it's that sense of like, I can't describe it, because it's in some ways indescribable until you experience the feeling of it. And I've had that experience sometimes where I'm like, is there something wrong with me that I'm not feeling as like puddled, for lack of a better term, as someone else is? Like, am I denying something? And I think to your point, maybe even part of that not bypassing is the ability to ask yourself that question, to check in with yourself and say, I just want to make sure I'm not totally bypassing this.
Yeah.
Is there, let me check in. Is there anything there? So it's not denial and bypassing. It's really that non-attachment.
Yeah. And I think a big part of my spiritual path and how I help others is we all have to know thyself.
That's what I think is the meaning of spirituality.
Yeah, totally. Because I know how I'm wired. I know what feels. I know when I'm not feeling. I know, as we get to know ourselves, then we know our avoidance games. Mm-hmm. And even if they, sometimes avoidance game will kick in, but within 24 hours or 48 hours, you start to, what am I avoiding? Like, you just really get deeply connected. Mm-hmm. And so when you're disconnected, you can feel that. And I pray about that. I welcome that. I'm not afraid to feel. I'm really not. And it comes when it comes,
Mm-hmm. It's been a while since I've talked to you about what I'm up to. I want to first start by thanking so many of my supporters who have supported me on Patreon and in my Circle community. What's so exciting now is we have my new Circle community up and running, where if you want to contribute to supporting the podcast, you can do so at different levels for different values. So head on over to my Circle group. You can actually find the link in the show notes below. And there's opportunities to continue to support the podcast. And I have to say, Your support of the podcast is frankly what has kept this podcast going over time. I have been funding the podcast solely by myself. I get a little bit of money in advertising dollars, but not a lot. So anything that you can give, if you have found value in this podcast, and it's not just giving without anything back, I will give back to you. You will be a part of this community with opportunities for discounts and conversations and ask Amy anythings. But it's a great opportunity for you to support what hopefully has helped you over the many, many years. Also, there's so many other ways now that you can work with me. I am offering a group course called Live Your Life Backwards, which is finishing its first cohort this winter and has been absolutely incredible. There's retreats coming up. There's workshops. There's one-on-one sessions with me. So many options that we can work together. So make sure you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed to my podcast, and make sure you're subscribed to my newsletter, where you will get a free soul wisdom workbook to help you dig deeper into the virtues that you want to be living in this lifetime. We all need so much more spirituality now. We are in a spiritual crisis, and I am giving you so many tools to tap into your own spirituality. So check out, and don't forget to subscribe to Life, Death, and the Space Between so you never miss an episode. So the new God is just this all-loving God for you.
The new God is I teach about it as three faces of God. There's God as principle, which is looking at God as law, as like gravity, like the law of mathematics, to use laws of this world. Like the sun rises on the rich and poor, the sun sets on there are laws that have no preference. Mm-hmm. They're impersonal. There's the impersonal nature of God. It's worthy to entertain that, because the impersonal nature of God means God is abundant, period. Mm-hmm. All of us have access to that. Some of us might need to undo a lot of stories and conditioning, but the reality is, as a law, as a nature, as a principle of being, God is life with no death. God is love with no hate. God is goodness with no other. Like we entertain the laws of attraction, the laws of like these things that we're studying. It's a great way to know God, because it takes you out of the I've got to be good for God. Mm-hmm. I've got to earn, God's love, and right. Then I get my goodies. Well, no, God is law. You learn how to work the law. You learn how to align with it, and that's one way it works. But then the bigger healing for us in the Western world especially is personal God, because people have been so wounded, like religiously abused around a personal relationship with God. And we all project onto God our conditional relationship with our parents. And some people have had really shitty parents. Mm-hmm. And so it makes sense that we all as children project onto God that. So that's the purification experience. But I do it through journaling. I journal with God. I have a living relationship with God the way I have a living relationship with my partner. Mm-hmm. And it ebbs and it flows. And sometimes it's amazing, but it's always connected. And I do my part. And I think people don't know how to do a consistent relationship with God. And think about it just in relationship. Two people committed to a relationship, it works better. Mm-hmm. Well, I feel like God is fully committed to me. My work is to be committed to God and to do my part and to really, I don't know how I got so blessed, but I have I hear, I have a voice. I feel it. I dialogue inside of it. One could say, if you're doing, what's the family systems parts therapy?
Oh, IFS. Yeah.
One could just say it's the essence self or the higher self. I mean, you could use a different word for it. But for me, even that essence self has a greater something. Yeah. And that I have just been very blessed to build a relationship with.
And what was so you have the three faces of God. One was God as principle. Two was the personal God. Was three the relationship?
No, sorry. Third is I am.
Okay.
Third is the oneness. Third is the mystical, there is no other. And those three create like a three-legged stool.
Mm.
And because I have those and because I teach on those, it's like, I know which leg of the stool to use. It's like, when do you use the impersonal nature of God? When do you use God as principle? When do you turn to God as personal?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I'm grieving, when I'm feeling alone, when I need that softer, personal, I'm okay thing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, because it's spiritual, because you can't touch it, it's nuanced. It needs attention. You need to learn how to be in relationship on that energetic plane.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, every one of us has it in us to do.
So one of the things that you do is you channel Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
What is that just you writing, or is there more to that? Like, do you feel like messages? Because some of what you were saying earlier when you were talking about, where is it? Safety and security, lies not of this world, like from the Bible. But I don't know. Are you familiar with Paul Selig and his channeling work?
Oh yeah, we're friends.
Oh, okay. That's so funny. I've had him on a couple times, and his channeling work sounds very similar to what you're like how he channels sounds like some of what you said.
It's similar, and it's interesting because when we used to talk every week, like we were real close, and I diminished my gift compared to his. I got stuck in comparison because he has this sort of magical, meh, 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 and then he said it.
I know it's crazy.
And it's a way that he's completely removed from the message. So he gets to literally be the fire hose.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's his way. And I'm like, mine is more intricate. Mine is connected. Mine is really, I feel I become open, and I hear the voice and I tell you what I hear. I also see images. I'll tell you exactly what I see. I tell people I will not hold anything back. This isn't this is a science and an art. We're going to work together, but I have the ability to, mine is more one-on-one. His has a hearing of this collective voice or guides.
Right.
My channeling comes through in service to the individual.
Okay.
It's in a session. I have an ability to almost like drill right into your consciousness, and I see things and I know things and I feel things, and I'll say, what was going on when you were 4? Like I can just, that's how it works for me. So I'm not channeling a message for a book.
Okay.
I'm channeling a healing experience for an individual. And I have in this last year started channeling healing experiences for groups. And it does come through like message and words and teaching, but it's in service to what's in the room. Where Paul seems to channel big messages for the collective.
Yeah.
Look, he's on book number 9 or 10 or
I don't know. He's in the Manifestation trilogy, I think, is where.
Yeah, like it's just phenomenal.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you've had the experience. He channeled once when I was in an interview with him, and the energy, the vibration that you feel when he's channeling, I've never experienced anything like that before. It's like next level.
Yeah, it's the real deal, and it's really cool. And like I said, I had to really, like, at one point I was like, I don't want to talk about what you do and what I do, because I always walk away feeling like I don't.
I can appreciate that. Yeah.
And it was good though for me, because I had to really get clean with this thing. And I call it the voice of the Holy Spirit, but it's just the words I'm given. Name it. And it does feel like a plural energy. It speaks in we, it speaks in us. But again, it seldom just downloads big buckets of information. It just serves who or what is in the room.
I want to talk about forgiveness, because this is a big thing. And you had mentioned it when we spoke. We spoke a while back. We were connected through a mutual friend before I interviewed you. And then I started really listening to it and how it came up in my clinical work, and how people kept saying, or when I would say, you need to forgive yourself for that. You need to also forgive your father for that. And they would say, I want to, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
And then I would find myself a little bit stuck.
Totally. Okay,
So I was
let's
really
move on.
excited to ask you how, it's such a difficult thing for people, right? And it's so people hold on to anger and resentment and pain. And I'm going to hold on to this until you feel the pain of what it was to have done this to me. So can you define what forgiveness is and how you help move people into that space of forgiveness?
Yeah. And again, forgiveness is deep. It's not you can't bypass on it because you'll know it. You'll feel it, just like you're describing. I want to, I try, but it doesn't work. Or, those kind of things. There's just no fooling that phenomenal spiritual practice. So what it is, first of all, I define forgiveness as something mystical that is done unto you, which means you can't do it. So it pains me how many people were told and believe that they have to figure it out. And I always use the analogy, if you fall down a hole, 30-foot hole, walking down the street, you just fall down a hole, you aren't going to feel bad that you can't get yourself out. That would be ridiculous to you. You call out for help, someone hears you, they send a rope, they send a ladder, and you are lifted out of this hole. That is forgiveness. But somehow we think that we're down this 30-foot hole of resentment or regret or pain or whatever, unhealed part, and we have to muscle it up. We have to do something that we literally aren't supposed to do, aren't wired to do, and aren't capable to do because we are stuck in this fragmented, broken part that needs healing. It's like you can't solve the problem at the level of the problem. Mm-hmm. It's even more than that because I am not the one that does the forgiveness. I'm not, but I am the one who has to be willing to ask for it. I am the one who calls upon forgiveness. And it's a subtle but profound difference, meaning this is how it goes. I ask that forgiveness set me and Amy free. I ask.
So you're asking God.
I'm asking the high, let's do the higher self. Okay. I'm asking the higher self in you that isn't holding the grudge, that isn't stuck down the 30-foot hole, that isn't trapped in the 10 years ago, that is ruminating. Right. There is a essence, a higher self that is whole, that does know your freedom and resides there. That's the part we're asking to lift us out, the spiritual nature of our being. Okay. And we're saying, I ask that this be done. That's your invitation. That's your opening. That's your willingness. But then here's the harder part, because then the forgiveness is going to do the work on you. The forgiveness is going to heal your mind. The forgiveness is going to heal your identity that collapsed with whatever happened. Because when I was sexually abused at 6 years old, I had a very clear idea about what I am, how flawed I am, how horrible I am. That's what I was stuck in. So I'm trying to forgive the neighbor guy, but I'm stuck in this identity that got collapsed in the trauma. Mm-hmm. So forgiveness over time disconnected me from the trauma, healed within me very powerfully beyond understanding, a mystical healing where I disidentified from the experience and I returned to self. Now I can reflect on the story. I can use the story for teaching and like right now, but it doesn't own me.
It doesn't have the same emotional resonance.
It has no emotional, and I don't, they're gifts. On the other side of the forgiveness come the gifts. Mm-hmm. From whatever we had to move through, there's a growth, there's a perspective, there's a way that I see the world, there's a way that I can work with people who are sexually abused that other people can't, because I know their freedom.
Right. But I think what you're talking about here, and why I love this, is because it's about spirituality, right? Yeah. Like you can't heal without that peace. You can't like as I'm talking to you, I'm thinking in my head of this particular person that I'm working with, like they're not very spiritual. And it's like, well, I have to help them maybe open up to that.
I think they need to be willing to have a miracle, have something shift for them. But here's the thing, and this is where people won't get forgiveness. And I'd say, well, then don't do it. Is forgiveness is going to change you at the deepest level, and forgiveness is going to make you give up being right. And that's because people are right that they're victimized. They're right that that person's an asshole. They're right that their life is fucked. They're right they're so committed to being right about their stance and their victimhood that when you say, you got to kind of forgive that and let it go, they're saying, you mean I disappear. They have so collapsed their identity with the broken story that what they're hearing is, so I'm nothing. So I don't matter.
Right. Like there's some reason they're holding on to it, right? Because if they give it up, it's like a dissolution of the self, it feels like.
Totally. And I say, no, baby, it's the opposite. You matter so much that you deserve to not live in that broken. You matter so much that you deserve to live happy, joyous, and free. That's how much you matter. But yeah, it is a dying of the self that has collapsed with the trauma.
That's identity is defined by that experience, and that to forgive means in some way that experience, like in some way you're giving up on the person who did this to you, like in some way being free from. Yeah.
I will share, I tend to be shy on this, but I feel like this is the right place. Like I'll share my mystical, this was one of the most phenomenal spiritual awakening experiences I had. And it was around this because I was working on the sexual abuse. I'd gotten in recovery and I was living in LA now. But the trauma of the sexual abuse would resurge when I'm having sex with my partner or just, in horrible situations. Like I would just get waves of this memory.
Experience, right.
And it was horrible. So I'm working with therapists. I'm doing my work. I was working with a spiritual counselor, and she was the one who said, let's do a forgiveness prayer. I said, yes, I'm willing. So long story, I fly to Chicago for my work. There I get triggered. The whole thing gets triggered in the work. I'm on the plane to fly back to LA. I'm sitting in the corner. I put my sunglasses on. Tears are coming down my face. Just like, God, please, I asked that forgiveness, set me free. I just looped it. And suddenly, I swear, I felt like God took me, pulled me out of the story and said, because the imagery was running, like the abuse, it just looks like a bad movie.
Right.
You can't
it's stuck. Yeah.
And I got pulled out and I heard, see this as I see this. And the whole image of the abuse disappeared, and it was light dancing with light. It was like a light show. And I was told that's in back of everything. All that is in back of all of this dream world of suffering is light dancing with light. I saw it, I felt it, and the whole story was like wadded up like into a ball, and it was thrown out into the sky, and it went into fireworks. It was very, very visual, very cinematic. And I was told, this story will no longer touch you. You will not suffer it. In fact, you'll only remember it when you use it for teaching purposes. To this day, to this very day, that is a miracle. I can't feel it in my body. I can tell you about it with no trigger. It's like something that happened, I think.
Right.
Like it's so.
Or did it, right? Like it's like,
did it?
Right.
Like it's so healed. And when you're shown, when the curtain is opened of this dramatic, dualistic, suffering world, and you see God's world and back of it, which is light dancing with light, you tell me what's real.
So let's go into that question. What is the matrix, right? You talk about this. You teach about this.
I do. The matrix is all the patterns. You see, people are, even Joe Dispenza teaches this. He says people are 98% patterns. patterns. So the matrix is you living in who you're supposed to be, who you think you are. The matrix is living in this collective hypnotic trance of humanity that says, this is right, that is wrong, be this, don't be that. We are so run by patterns and belief systems that we don't even know what's us and what's not us.
Mm-hmm.
And
oh
so
my God,
the matrix is all of, so that's what I'm saying. Spiritual awakening is all of those disappearing, sometimes like layers of an onion, sometimes like a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
But every identity that I have of this world now goes through the dissolution process because it's not my truth. It's not what I am. It's not who I am. So the matrix is literally like the movie, waking up and going, oh my God, this is a dream. And it gets trippier because, in a nighttime dream, who are all the people that are in your dream? Where are they? Who's making them up? You are, right?
Right.
You don't wake up mad at your husband because of what he did in the dream last night.
Sometimes. I've had that experience. Wait, you've never had that experience where you're like, wait, you cheated on me in the dream last night, and like I'm mad at you, even though I know it's not real.
No, well, it fades pretty quickly.
It does fade pretty quickly, but like sometimes the intensity of it is like there's something to this. You can't separate what's real and what's not real.
Exactly, and that is a dream within a dream, and everyone will get this when they get it. We are in a dream. This is a dream. And just like at nighttime, when I'm dreaming of a whole crowd of people, I'm making them up in my mind.
Right.
That's the same here. We're making we're peopling this dream. We're making it real. We're touching it, all this stuff. But everyone is ultimately me. There's one here. I am the dreamer, and all the characters are my projection of the dream. So now I play the game very differently than everybody else, because I'm like, if I see someone do an X, Y, or Z, that's me in the dream. Do I love them or do I judge them? That's my only choice.
And what a time how amazing to be able to have that experience now in this time because of everything that's going on, right? And all the projections that are happening.
Yeah, but for me, it's just a call to forgive more.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Like I am not rattled. And here's the other thing. Like I look at it like everyone else says, and I just hear nothing new here. The dream just repeats the past. How is this different from the 1940s? How is this different from the 1920s? Nothing new. The only difference is social media makes it more so everyone knows it now.
Right.
Back then, all these horrible things were happening, but they just kept them undercover, and even worse.
Right.
The things that have always been happening in this suffering world. And I say, is it enough suffering that it makes you want to get out? Or do you want to double down and just keep talking about it and keep,
Yeah.
There's nothing there that's going to be life-giving for me.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I wanted to go back to, hang on, give my middle-aged brain 1 second because I didn't.
I'm older than you. Be careful.
Because I didn't write it down. I know what I wanted to ask. With spiritual awakening, I see this often just in my clinical work, but I think it's because in clinical work, people evolve, right? And especially when you have a spiritual awakening, a spiritual opening, your perception of of everything shifts. A lot of people I find struggle with what that means about their current relationships, how they stay in relationship to another when that person isn't, they say, on the same spiritual path as me.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious your thoughts on that. Because my husband is very pragmatic. He is not spiritual in the way that I consider myself spiritual. Although in many ways I see him as like a Zen Buddha. I don't even understand how he seems to not get frazzled by like life's daily annoyances. And so in some ways I'm like, he's just like, and maybe he's just like way more evolved. And he's like, okay, like I don't need to be diving deep into all of this. Like things just sort of roll off his back a little bit more. And so I don't know why I brought that piece into it, but I guess my greater question is like, how do you help people kind of understand, like, do we all need to be on this spiritual path to be in relation with one another?
Well, it's a really good question, actually. And I'm going to reference the 12-step world, because when someone comes into recovery, their whole world's going to change. That is a spiritual awakening. From knowing yourself as an addict to knowing yourself as someone who can possibly recover, that's a spiritual awakening right there. That's a big shift. And they will tell you, don't make any changes for the first year. Mm-hmm. Everything's going to feel unstable. You're changing all this. They tell you don't move, don't switch jobs.
Right.
Don't
sort of like after any major life change, right? Like after you've had a baby, after you've lost a loved one, after you just don't do anything drastic. Don't get a haircut.
Right. And that's the same thing. It's the same idea. If you've had this spiritual awakening and suddenly you're seeing everything differently, don't do anything drastic. Let it be yours, because what happens is if that happens to you and you start comparing and judging, you're actually watering down the experience. Mm-hmm. You're actually like causing yourself more pain. Yes, you're seeing the person through a different lens, mm-hmm. but they're not wrong. Right. You know what I mean? Like I don't make changes in my life unless they're guided, unless I really know that they're led by spirit. And I have relationships. Sometimes I'm like, and I'm married too. So there are times I'm like, but it's not about me needing to change. Let me say it this way. It's not about me needing to change my seat on the deck of the Titanic that's going down. I'm not saying that well, but you know that saying where like you get a better view, mm-hmm. you change the seat on the Titanic for a better view. Well, it's still going down. Mm-hmm. So pick whatever view you want, right. Switch chairs, do whatever you want. To me, it's the same idea. Like once you wake up, you really are waking up that this is a dream and you're waking up to your spirit, then you don't need to make anybody wrong. You don't need to switch. You don't need to do those things unless they're led. Mm. Like, I hope I'm explaining it well.
Yeah. But then I think the question, excuse me, the follow-up question to that would be for people, how do I know what's led versus how do I know what's my mind telling me I should do this, I shouldn't do that? Like I hear a lot of people say like, oh, spirit guided me to this. And it's like,
Well, I think it's okay to let them have that. I think like for some, like it's okay if there's some trial and error mm-hmm. in there, learning how to follow a voice, learning how to discern, learning how to find your truth. Like it's kind of like a baby learning to crawl and then learning to walk. Mm-hmm. You don't make a baby wrong if they fall down. Right. They're on their way.
Right.
Right.
You don't yell at the baby.
No.
Why did you fall?
You pick it up.
Right.
You help it learn. And I think we need to think about it in that way.
I like that.
Spirit told you that. Great. Well, if Spirit told you that, like you can play with it. If Spirit told me that, then I really can wait 2 days. Mm-hmm. I can wait 40 hours to make a choice mm-hmm. because that's how I just sort of get very logical about it in the right way, especially when it comes to making a choice or doing something that feels like it's got some push to it. Well, if it really is mine, it will be here in 48 hours. Mm-hmm. If it really is mine to do, then show me another sign. I love show me prayers.
I love concretizing.
Yeah.
What it is. Yeah.
I say, God, make it clear and make it in my language.
That's a great one. Make it clear and make it in my language.
Don't, I'm not looking for fancy talk. I'm not looking for anything, but that can even be more confusing because if it's an unclear English voice, then you go, oh, that's not me. The reality is God speaks to you in your language, in your vibration, because you are one with this presence. And I'm just telling you, cultivating the relationship on a consistent basis.
God speaks to me in license plates. Is that odd?
It's fun. That's the fun part.
It is fun. It's super fun.
That's the fun part. Oh my God. There was a time I took a job in Florida back in 2018 in Naples, Florida. And I'm like, why are we moving to Naples? God, please give me a sign. I swear. I was out to lunch with a friend in Roscoe Village. I went to my car And the license plate in front of me on the car in front of me was from Naples, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that's fun.
I do too. I love it. I love it. That to me is like, it's just so playful. It's so much joy in life when those things happen. I love those.
And to me, that's a way to keep, we want it to be that way. If the nature of God is joy, then for you to know the nature of God, you've got to get out of the heaviness that you keep choosing. You know, we really can. We have the power to choose joy anytime we want. But a dark story pulls us down, and then suddenly it feels like if we were to choose joy, it would be this offense to the dark story.
Right.
Well, offend the dark story.
And God wants us in joy.
Well, that's how you know God. That's the tough part. Like you know God in the light. You know God in the joy. You know God in the energy of feeling alive, because that's what God is. You know? How do you know light in darkness?
Right.
You can have faith in the light. You can know the light is coming. You can do all those right things, but it's much better to just switch the light switch on.
Well, Mark, this was awesome, as I knew it would be. If people are interested in learning about you, your work, what you do, can you tell them where they might find you? Yeah,
markanthonylord.me. And I'm happy to, if anyone's interested in a session, they're 60 to 90 minutes. As I said, I just channel what I hear, and often information comes through the chakras, and we do work on different levels that way. I've been not trained at all in the chakras. I literally, this whole process, I've just received and I've practiced, and I've honed in on that one. So I'll send you a discount code.
Awesome. I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah. And I'll put it in the newsletter when this goes. Thank you.
Yeah. That way they can explore that, which I just love. I love doing them. They're very alive.
That's awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much. I can't wait for us to meet in person.
Right.
Over drinks in Michigan somewhere or in Chicago.
Yes.
But thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Amy. And thank you for, I really mean this, like, your questions are good.
Thank you.
you were like, ooh, she's asking cool questions. Oh. It helps me be able to respond, because there is sort of a channeling that's happening while I'm talking to you. So I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. So did I. It was, I didn't know. Usually I have like a book to reference and I highlight and read and and this was great. I loved just like showing up. I had a few questions, but then tracking the conversation.
Yeah. Awesome.
Like what you heard today and want to hear more? Wondering what comes next and what it all means? Head over to Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere you get your podcasts and hit subscribe. Also, if you could take a minute to rate and review my podcast, I would really appreciate it. Stay tuned as we continue to explore life, death, and the space between.